So we're looking underneath the left front of this Pathfinder. There is our stabilizer bar that runs underneath that shield and goes to the other side. And there is the link right up there that fastens the bar to the lower control arm, or kind of looks like an A, so some call it an A arm. There is the inner bushing. There is the other inner bushing right there. And then our ball joint is at the end right there. That's the right side. Here is the left side. And we're checking the front end on this because we have movement somewhere. The left front wheel is loose. We're going to find out why. So Frank's going to wiggle this wheel left and right. And I know why already. So we're going to see if we can see it. So I don't know if you can see on this video. Let me see if I can get in there. I can't see it, but that outer tie rod joint right there in there is loose. That's the outer tie rod. And you can see the outer tie rod is fastened to the inner, and the inner goes to the steering rack up there. So there is movement. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but this outer tie rod is loose. So we're going to replace it. Just pick up the play. So that's how much the wheel is moving on its own because of that loose outer tie rod end. So if we wiggle the other side, it's not going to do that. So that's no good. No movement there, right, Frank?
No.
Okay. So the outer tie rod screws on to the inner, and this is a jam nut right here that locks the outer to the inner, and the inner goes all the way in there to the steering rack. So this steering rack's located in front of the wheel. Okay, there's our strut, our upper control arm, our upper ball joint, and that is our steering knuckle that everything is fastened to. So we are replacing this joint because this is loose right here. So we are actually getting movement right here, but we're going to replace both sides. Okay, so I undid the cotter pin that prevents the nut from coming free. So the nut fastens on top of the knuckle, this part of the knuckle that the tie rod goes through. Okay, and as you can see, it's threaded, or it's screwed on to the inner tie rod. And the reason it's threaded is because that is where we make what's called our toe adjustment for our alignment. So if we look at it from the front, you can see that when we put the new tie rod on, it has to be aligned. If we don't thread it on enough, then it's going to direct the front wheel outward. If we thread the tie rod too far, all the way, it's going to direct the front of the wheel inward. And that's going to affect our toe, similar to us walking like this or like this. If that tire drags down the road like that or like this, it's going to wear the tires out. So that is our toe adjustment. But we're going to send it for an alignment anyway, so we just have to get it close. So sometimes what we can do is either just count how many rotations it takes us to get it, the old one off, or we can measure from the center here to a stationary part on the vehicle. And whatever that measurement is, as long as we get it the exact same, then we know the alignment is the same before and after we do the tie rod. But we're going to do an alignment on it anyways, because every couple of years you should do an alignment. So that's the outer tie rod we're going to remove from the inner. So we take the nut off, and then if we give the knuckle a few whacks with the hammer right here, we'll break that the tie rod free of the knuckle. And that's the tie rod right there. Okay, and it's a tapered fit right here. It's tapered into the knuckle. That's why we have to give it a few whacks. And then as you can see, this one's gonna come nice. Sometimes they're C's. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna count the threads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13 threads onto the jam nut. Or what we can do is, because we just cracked the jam nut loose just a little, if we put the new one back on right up against the jam nut, then we know it's pretty close. But we're going for an alignment anyway. So that's the inner right there. So there is our left front and our right front outer tie rod ends. You can see how they're shaped kind of like that. So you got to make sure the new one, you know, we put the correct one on the correct side. And if we take this grease boot off that holds grease in there, the tie rod just looks like that. So it's just a, I wonder if I can move this. Okay, so it's just a ball and socket in there. All right, that's a ball and socket joint, just like a ball joint. Okay, so that's the outer tie rod. Other side? I got your head though. Phone won't focus. So we tighten it with a gun. We're going to give it a little bit more with a wrench just so we can feel, make sure it's tight.
Okay.
Okay. So that one's good. And then we have to install the cotter pin through that hole, and that just prevents the nut